Hi, everybody. Nick Blazier here with another interview. I think I'm going to start calling this Inside Backgammon. How do you guys like that? Inside Backgammon with Nick Blazier. But I have my live commentary trips up on the screen here, real quick. So you can catch me remotely at Gibraltar coming up, San Antonio's coming up, and of course, Loot Rocky in Virginia. And the one I have on here is the Rack London Invitational. And with me today is the tournament director of that tournament, Andrew Selby. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Yeah.
Unbelievably, the first time we've actually physically seen each other.
Right, right. I can't believe we haven't met, but you were still able to like reach out and
Uh,
ask me to come out and do commentary. I really appreciate that, man. It's a
yeah,
good way to meet
I
someone.
have no pride,
Yeah, yeah.
or no ego, one or the other. I'm not sure.
But so I've been getting familiar with all the things you do since that, of course, and I know you're a member of the UKBGF board that you run, a few different tournaments in London and things like that. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of get your perspective on the backgammon world, hear what it's like running your tournaments, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we pride ourselves in the UK because I think, as I mentioned to you, we have an incredible community of backgammon players.
Hmm.
We have a UKBGF Tour now. In fact, last week was the Tour Winners Invitational, where all the winners of the intermediate and masters events
Oh wow.
playing, playing an invitational where they then play for the ultimate championship. And it's become really popular. Our membership, it's not bad. It's about 1,200,
Hmm.
um, and all our events sell out on the smaller scale at the 64 players, and on the more regular scale, 128.
Mm.
I've already got way over 200 people registered for the RAC Open in March, which hopefully you'll be joining us with commentary. And the UK Open in August last year, we had 208 people. So I think as a community and a attendee event country, I think we're probably up there with the best of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. Yeah,
That sounds amazing. Yeah. I feel
it
like a lot
really
of
is. And
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the European events get like the benefit of more countries being able to travel to them as well. So these like the UK Open and things like that, do you get a lot of like an international crowd or people traveling over? Is that mainly UK attendance?
no, it's mainly UK. I mean, take
Wow.
the U.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I'd say it's almost entirely UK.
That's amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
the main reason being, we don't have any added monetary value, which, as you and I know, you see at the casinos and the hotels in Europe, which is great.
Yeah.
Something the game desperately needs. We both know that.
Yeah.
And equally, yeah, listen, the cost of travel doesn't help. But more importantly, it doesn't help when you have tournament directors like me who want the events to be non-profit making. So if you take as a good example the UK Open this year, if we have the same numbers as last year, I will dilute the prizes so that even in the last 16, you have a chance of winning your weekend money back as opposed to a much bigger first prize.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah, the more international players that may want to come over to pay for their trip will look at that and go, oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
even if I win the event, I wouldn't win as much as I would have expected in an event like that. But for me, it's about spreading the love, literally, in this game.
Yeah.
Um, and for me to reach the last 16 of the UK Open for most of our members is a hell of an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found it a bit disappointing if you didn't cash out till you sort of got to a semi-final, and even then, it probably didn't pay for your weekend. Um, so this year will be different. So no, our events are, yeah, geared to value for the membership.
Yeah.
We've done a deal this year with Art Gammon to provide prizes at very sensible discounts for us that we're subsidising for our members. And look, we're a non-profit making organisation, probably similar to the USBGF, but without the substance that you manage to raise all those monies to
Yeah.
really boost the game.
Yeah.
So for us,
Yeah. It's
the added, yeah,
It's interesting. I assume that the USBGF is nonprofit as well, though I don't know 100%. But they always talk about it. I think more like a business. Like if we're going to operate and grow Backgammon, we need to be profiting off of something to create the resources to do this, right? So it's kind of refreshing to hear a different perspective on that, you know? And it's also, I hear the same thing in the tournament circuit. Like I don't pretend to know what the secret is. I like asking everyone and hearing all these different perspectives. But a lot of people think, you know, like no one's going to travel to tournaments and go make this scene bigger if the prizes don't get bigger, if sponsorship doesn't show up. But on the other side, you have this argument of like, maybe it just needs to be like a fun vacation, a mind sport, a thing that we're getting out and doing together. And I hear a lot of that in the way that you're describing your London events. And it sounds like the community, like locally there, has really picked up on that, which is really cool and encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the 300, 400, 500 people that go to Arda's events,
yeah,
put it in perspective, how many of them honestly go expecting to either to win meaningfully? They don't. They're not.
Yeah.
Where they're hoping for is a lot of action. I've always joked that the tournament part of the event is the face of the event. It's the fun. That should be for the kudos and the, you know, you want to be the victor. But the reality for people that actually want some financial incentive over it is going to be the jackpots, the side pools, the chouettes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the interface with the community is of value. You know, and that's why I don't believe the majority of people are money orientated in backgammon, because there isn't the money there.
Yeah.
You know, unless you finish in the top 2, 3, 4, 5 places, how much can you win?
Right.
You know,
right.
I mean, I look on a positive. You just came runner up in the biggest online event we have.
Yeah.
You know, if that was in the chess community, you'd have semi-retired off the back of the amount of money that would have been in it.
Why aren't I semi-retired?
Yeah, exactly. Because unfortunately, backgammon, doesn't allow it. Yeah, with the greatest respect, God bless him. People like the Mochas and Sanders are a good example. He turned away from the game. Which I assume in part was financial, because there just wasn't the money in backgammon for his skill set to justify enough that he could earn from it, which is crazy when you look at the fact that he is now, well, if he's not the best player in the world, he's the equal best player in the world. Right.
Yeah. I think he deserves a title for a little bit. You know, it's so hard to say it.
No,
of course, I think he earned it. I think he earned like crazy run there with
well, I think with Monte Carlo and the UBC, that's extraordinary. It's fantastic.
It might never happen again. You know, like it was unbelievable.
Well, it happened the year before with Mochi, didn't it?
Right, with one step less, which like Mochi didn't win the contender tournament. So what's Mochi got to do this year, right? Like contender, world championship, UBC finals, and what else? We got to come up with something else for him so he can get like the 4 and then have the real title.
We can come and win a non-profit making event like the UK Open.
Yeah, there we go.
Put that down as a tax loss.
I love it. Maybe the top PR on BMAB for the year too. You know, I mean, he is also the only super grandmaster, but I digress.
No, absolutely.
But that's really cool. So what came first for you? Was it being a board member on UKBGF or the tournament director side? Okay.
No, so I'd never played backgammon till 2013, 14.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's about when I started too. Yeah.
I played sort of meaninglessly online because I can only sleep 6 hours a day and my wife likes to go to bed early. Yeah. And I just needed to find something to do it late at night. Yeah. So I started playing some online sites and found my way into one of the local clubs, which was a funny anecdote. Actually, in my first year, you start with an ELO rating in the UKBGF, because actually 2014 is when actually we started the national rankings.
Yeah, okay.
And obviously, for what it's worth, big shout out to Tony Lezard, who created those ranking system is what's now evolved all around the world, and Tony is the one that has set up the world ranking system as well.
Wow, cool. Okay.
So look, as long as a lot has come out of the substance of the UKBGF, from the ranking system to the rules. We created the general set of rules that ultimately created a foundation.
Yeah.
I can see, hopefully we'll marry it with the US shortly.
Okay.
Um,
Let me get, is it dice on checker?
genuinely be
Is that
able
the
to live.
challenge?
Yeah, well, then we can go back to Oscar Wilde's quote of the US and the UK have everything in common except our language.
I love
Yeah,
that.
Someone's got to explain to me the difference in a legal role and a non-legal role, and the dice on the checkers and not on the checkers. It's like driving on the wrong side of the road. But
Have you been really involved
so
in
by
those?
default, I started playing in 2014.
Yeah.
Paid my little £10 and £20 to play in 3-round Swisses at the club evenings. Had no clue about ratings in the UKBGF at that time, but you start at a ELO rating of 1500.
Okay.
By the end of the year, I dropped to 1200 and something, because you have this exponential
in the beginning,
up and down. But I literally did not win a game. I didn't know what I was doing, in all honesty. But I got nominated as the most courteous player of the year in the UKBGF's inaugural awards, because people couldn't understand why I was such a gracious loser. For me, these were and I say it genuinely, these were the best lessons I ever had.
Yeah.
I was never, and I still have never been, a read a book, have a lesson, follow XG. I've always been a strategic game player.
Sure.
So my abilities are both optimized and minimized, as is the paradox of it, that as a backgammon player, I'm now probably through that learning curve of watching people play, watching the mindset of how people play, improved me significantly. And I've now become one of those single-figure golf handicap players that doesn't hold the club the right way. But I think now, if someone actually dissected my lack of knowledge, it would ruin my game. So from 2014, I gradually got better.
Yeah.
And by 2017-18, I was sort of, just part of the London backgammon community.
Yeah.
And then stumbled into tournament direction, because London was unbelievably a bit nomad. There wasn't anyone really running London backgammon.
Okay.
Which sounds a bit bizarre. It was a little bit ad hoc and fragmented.
Yeah.
And we had this there's the Hippodrome Casino in Leicester Square.
Okay.
And they used to give up a room for the backgammon monthly events.
Wow.
And anyway, cutting a very long story short, they served us polite notice to leave because Magic Mike and his strip act was coming in. That's how low down the ladder backgammon was perceived in England. And I said, look, we can't lose backgammon in London. I'll take ownership. I'll start running it. And from there, I took over the London Open from Simon Moorcroft, who had very magnanimously been running it for 2 years, even though he didn't even live locally.
Okay.
And then I think, as you know, the amount of people within the backgammon community that are actually, and I say it honestly, that do things, is actually very small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very small. The faces you will see, the tournament directors, the invitations you will receive, the people that you will see behind the scenes are invariably all the same people.
Yeah.
It is a selfless act. It is a selfless act. I pray that people like Arda make a fortune out of the game because they deserve it, Mark Olsen. But generally, we both know it's a hard graft for not that much reward financially.
Yeah.
For me, I knew that before I started. I wasn't doing it for financial. I did it because I just believe I had a vision for UK backgammon that could at least create a legacy for myself that I could then leave to the game and say, you know what, I've done my bit.
Yeah.
I've laid some really solid foundations. The game can grow. Now someone with a bit more energy and enthusiasm and youth can come on board. But I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that might be a while.
Yeah.
But the plus side now is we have a really good board of directors at the UKBGF. There's a good pool of support. I think the community is genuinely appreciative of what we do.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
You know, we all have our ups and downs, as we saw at the UK Open last year. But fundamentally, we get through it all. And
I wasn't even going to mention it.
Yeah. Well, listen, again, you talked about perspective. You know, it's the only thing in backgammon in my mind that you actually have control of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and people lose control of it very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and the sort of hyperbole and exaggeration and, you know, just the general mood of the whole process online was sad because it's a game of backgammon. You know, put it in perspective this week, Brian Lever, who is one of the real solid, I don't even want to patch and say elder statesman, again, sadly passed away quite suddenly. You know, that's the reality of the game. And, you know, someone like him played with us for 30 years. There will never be even the slightest bad word to be said about him. It will only be positive. You know, so a transgression on a video in a backgammon match, come on. You know, let's move on. Yeah, no one stole from anyone. No one cheated anyone. No one killed anyone.
Yeah.
You know, it's, yeah, I was kind of excited that maybe the attention would actually boost the game in a perverse way.
Yes.
It would almost work as a complete oxymoron that actually any publicity can sometimes be good publicity.
Sure.
But I think it spiraled a little bit out of control. But anyway, you know, but the process found, as best it can, a solution. You know,
I do wonder.
That was actually a very good example of boards. Sometimes actually the diversity of opinion, but finding something that bordered on common sense. Yeah. And make no mistake, there was never going to be a right or wrong decision. It was always going to be muddied waters and grey.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's been interesting times for me. You know, COVID was probably the catalyst of everything I've tried to do in the game, because that was the time where there was a real lull in the UK backgammon world. And as I said to you earlier, I created the National Online League with my silent partner, David Potter. David's one of those who sits behind the throne.
Okay.
But it's very much, very much. But no, we created an online league for the members to give them something to do through COVID.
Nice.
And between the online league and cup, I tell you, we've got across the board way over 800 people and counting. Mm-hmm. We've had a significant growth in membership.
Wow.
And online, as Mark Olson is, trying to prove, is ultimately the biggest catchment of players the game can provide. Period. We can't get close to it live. Not even close.
Yeah.
And it needs to be embraced.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while to infuse people in the UK to embrace it. I think there are still people that believe club and live play is adversely affected by people that would rather play on their computer. And they're too, in some instances, that's true.
Yeah.
And in some instances, it's the complete reverse. And I look at the younger generation.
Yeah.
Their only interest is a tablet. Their only interest is playing there. You're not going to get youngsters more than once a season coming out like I have for my national championships at the end of the year, but they're not going to play every month. They've got school, they've got exams.
Yeah.
They've got obviously outside interests that I'm sure are a lot more exciting than backgammon for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine it so the only logical path is like a new player to me to getting into backgammon. I don't see a lot of people just showing up at the UK Open, right? And I'm going to try out backgammon for the first time. But online and getting into tournaments and lower buy-ins or something like that, this all makes a lot of sense to me. So I would expect there has to be a huge path of bringing people into the game through online play that way. The only place I could see it impacting it would be kind of like the club play that you're talking about, where if it's a weekly tournament in a bar with 5 to 10 people or something like that, I could see maybe some people being happy to trade that out for online play instead. you know, and
No,
so
for sure.
yeah,
I mean, look, I've got in May bank holiday in the UK, the end of May. Actually, I think that's when Rory has his Chicago Open because it always clashes,
yeah,
and the National Clubs Championship.
yeah,
And we're inviting all the clubs from all over the country to come down to London, and it's becoming not so much our best attended event because it's growing hugely, but
yeah.
probably now the most important event in UK backgammon
Wow.
because it's
Okay.
the club. The clubs are the grassroots. The
Yeah.
clubs are the where people are going to come in politely off the street and start trying to play. And I agree with you. Go back to me in 2014. For £10, I was able to sit at a table, play 3 Swiss matches with competent people, learn my craft. In my events, club members, I have 2 club evenings a month, one in central London, one in North London. It's free entry.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for anything if you don't want to try and infuse those people that don't really know the game.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's very rare. I've seen it. In fact, I could say actually, I've never seen anyone come to learn the game from almost a scratch position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, almost impossible. And I
Mhm.
think that would be because it would be just too intimidating. I mean,
Mm.
it'd be like us walking into a chess club and never having played chess, sort of embarrassing, saying that I'd like to start from the beginning, please. And they'd look. It's like, well, yeah, we can start from a sort of a basic beginner level, but we can't just teach you how to move each individual piece.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I'd love to utilize more our professionals. I think the teaching element of backgammon now is finally becoming a real entity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the fact that the younger generation are getting so good so quickly because they're starting from a position where they've got no bad habits.
Yeah.
We're a generation that still learnt the game the old way
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah.
If we came from blank canvas today of XG, these are the right moves. You can't but start almost at an advanced level
Yeah.
because you wouldn't. You've got no bad habits to get out of. There's only now it's so easy to understand. As you see, the opening 3 moves literally you could learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I always laugh when people go, "Why would you do it?" And I say, "Well, the average game of backgammon, the individual game, is probably at a decent level between 12 and 16 moves at most. If you don't
Yeah.
know the first 3, you're putting yourself at a real disadvantage."
Fair
And
point.
anyway, you've got to give people like Bill Roberti the biggest respect for rolling out hours of their lives to understand those moves pre-XG.
Right. I do kind of. I mean, it seems like such an amazing era to have been a part of where someone had to, for each one of these individual things, just go figure it out on their own, and they would come back with their conclusion, and maybe people would believe them or maybe not, and everyone just kind of knew their one thing. It's just incredible.
I mean, it is funny. I had my first sort of you have a Hall of Fame type of inductee situation in the US. So
working on it,
for
I
the
think,
UK
yeah.
Open last year, I wanted to start ensuring that people, God bless them, that are still alive, were given the sort of the rightful sort of testimonial at our national flagship. Anyway, Joe Dweck, who's one of the real old school UK backgammon players,
Sure.
I think won one of those wonderful world championships when they were sort of diverse from Monte Carlo in like Barbados or something.
Sure. I recognize the
anyway,
name. Yeah.
Anyway, so we have the Joe Dweck Trophy now at the UK Open. He really kindly provided the most wonderful silver trophy. But it was really interesting when you see someone now in their 80s, still 100% all there, who's been able over the decades to change his game so significantly from where it started.
Yeah.
And he said just the evolution from him to Paul, because he predates Paul Maygrell, from him to Paul to Bill Roberti, who then changed the face of it to another level, to then the computer world. He said it's just extraordinary when he looks back at all his old transcriptions And the funny thing is, it's a bit like the
paper
chess
and
world.
pen.
They used to write them all down.
Yeah.
And he said he spent more time writing his moves down than he did playing them.
Oh man, there's still a young guy that I see doing that in the States at tournaments that like nactates his old matches, and that's how he transcribes. I'm just so impressed by that. I can't believe.
Yeah, well, let's pray to God did you Gammon get it right, because the final metamorphosis in the game to make will be when you can just immediately transcribe your game.
Yeah.
And if they pull this out the hat, the irony is the game then actually, in my opinion, only really has its value live. Because the truth is, at that point, you've now got so many good players. The standard of backgammon is ridiculous now.
Right.
The amount of players that are playing between sort of 3 and 6 as a bracket is ridiculously high.
Yeah.
But my love for the game is live, because under pressure live, all those academia XG moves don't necessarily, your brain doesn't necessarily allow you to do them. And I'm just a lover of the purity of live play. And there's no surprise that invariably the PRs, especially in tournament backgammon, are significantly higher than a BMAB.
Interesting. Yeah.
Significantly higher.
Yeah.
Because under pressure with titles or money it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game. And if you said to me, why is someone like me being able to achieve an element of heights in the game in the UK, it's my ability at match play to try and not fear winning or losing while I'm playing.
Yeah.
But if I was trying to find the right moves at BMAD, I wouldn't care about winning or losing.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and all the tournaments I host, it's staggering actually the diversity of PRs under pressure of even very, very good players.
Yeah.
I always say that actually the top players separate themselves by still playing to their PR handicap under pressure.
Yeah.
And that's when you're an elite backgammon player.
Yeah.
That you cannot change your mindset and your concentration under pressure, because most of us
huge aspect.
can't.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think I'm similar to you, where when there's something on the line, I actually tend to care a little more, like play a little better in that sense. Like I'm just more focused, and so I'm making the best decisions I can. And I've also always been like, when I got into backgammon and didn't know that much about the game, well, I did know how to like perform or compete like in that sort of scenario. And so I just brought that with me and was making sure that I'm always playing to like my top level. And it's probably more serious than people want to like take a tournament in general. But yeah, for me, it's interesting where like I probably play my best in a tournament under pressure. And that's it. And I'm like super prepared to, Yeah.
And it's interesting. That's probably reflected in the book you've just written.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, that match play mentality, that sort of, put me in in inverted commas 7-point game.
Yeah.
There's my skill set. I'm not saying I can't compete with UBC players, but that's not my skill set.
Yeah, I got you.
And that's a separate skill set. It really is.
Well, the match play stuff in my book, I talk a lot about like all the mathematics of take points and things like that, but not really. I try to like talk around the math and just get to like, how do you have a feel for all these things? So it actually, I mean, maybe you'll like it.
I get it.
Yeah, it's like a super, because it can be, some people study that really as like as like a whole thing in itself. And like, I don't know, you can do math all day about those things and like be calculating over the board. But I'm gathering that you're more of an intuitive player. And if you had some things that you understood about the score that you were supposed to do, like these kinds of like fundamental rules about it, are going to be more helpful than really getting into the weeds with like exactly what's going on. Right. Yeah. And of course,
absolutely.
The best player can do both. Yeah.
But then you have to take it to the next level, which is the match play mentality of, are you playing at any point in time your opponent? And some of those right moves, would you do that to create volatility against arguably a lesser player?
Yeah.
I know under pressure you wouldn't. You would, would I take a 25% cube against someone I didn't think was as good as me?
Yeah.
I'd rather lose the point.
Yeah.
Than care about whether my PR. The old golf adage: you don't paint a pretty picture on your scorecard. At the end of the day, you win or lose a match. The score is irrelevant. How you got there is irrelevant.
Yeah.
We always joke: life is about the journey, not the destination. Match play is about the destination, not the journey.
Right.
It's only about who wins or loses.
Yeah. I believe in these sorts of these kinds of player adjustments. I don't do them. First of all, I should say I'm new enough to the game that it feels hard enough to just understand what good backgammon is and execute that over the board, right? So I think if I'm letting in some sort of adjustment, well, I'm more likely to be wrong about that and all these things. But I know that players do it, and I think there's a lot of ways, especially in chouettes and things like that. I can understand the logic behind it and why these different things might make sense. The passing the 25% cube is a little less intuitive to me, but maybe just making backgammon longer makes sense and things like that.
I think it's knowing your opponent. I think the community here and the national rating is very well defined. So if you've got an ELO rating, it's a matter of 1,700 and you're playing someone of 1,500 as an example, and you know that on paper you're a far better player than they are.
Yeah.
And it's an 11-point match. I would always be of the mindset, well, if they think they're going to win 11-1 points against me, good luck. More often than not, that's perfect for me.
Yeah.
It's the volatility and the cubes that I think when I'm playing lesser players, and I hate saying that word because I don't think I'm such an elite player, far from it.
Yeah.
It's the gammons that are the key.
Sure.
The calculating gammons is the most underestimated part of the game. Yeah. You can look at match equity, you can look at rights runs, but it's the top players have an innate ability of turning advantageous positions into gammons. I'd say Sandra is the perfect exponent of that.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal at it.
Yeah.
He just sniffs out a position and understanding the gammons is huge. It's just huge.
Yeah.
And it's actually his ability to drop cubes where he thinks he can see it as well. Took me a long time to concentrate more on gammons than a large element of other things in the game.
Yeah.
Because I just underestimated it. Because you look at it.
I wonder, I've seen a lot of people as they kind of get used to that too. A common mistake I see is people wanting to not leverage gammons to send a cube. And instead, when they're there, they think it's time to play on. And if I could win more, why do I want to cash 1 point? When the value of the cube is to threaten and get your point every time, right? Even though you might lose that game a third of the time otherwise, right? I don't know. You ever run into that, or are you pretty comfortable?
Yeah, I would say my biggest blunder area is either the too good to double, where I am exactly what you just said. I like to cash in. Invariably, I underestimate my position. So the amount of PR blunders I do on too good.
Yeah.
And at some point, if someone can truly educate everybody on too good to double, that will be a wonderful lesson because it's very hard.
Yes.
I think even for the better players, it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it's amazing the value of those blunders.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I mean, I'm a strategic backgammon player. I look at the score. Whether it's odd or evens away will always be the most relevant, as we both know.
Yeah.
The match equity table, that's a given in a 11-point match. That's not rocket science.
Okay.
But for me,
I can't remember it. It's rocket science to me.
I think it's like all these things. Once you get to five away, it's sort of more commonplace.
Yeah, those ones I remember.
But I think it's understanding that the gammons, the too good to be trues, and I'd say the other big area that the master level is better than the advanced level that I might put myself in is their ability from winning positions to close out without slipping on the ice. The amount of times I will just make very subtle errors, bringing round pieces. I'll be lazy, 3 in the home, in a closed board.
Yeah.
and then you ultimately leave a shot, you lose the game, and then you go back and you're looking at these small blunders that actually created a huge issue. But when I watch the top players, very seldom do they give away games they're winning.
Yeah. This bringing home in Baron, especially against like ace point games, I felt that a lot in my early days of backgammon, of just like, it seems like I'm losing these to turnarounds a lot and always leaving a shot. And that might have just been not understanding how often you do leave a shot in those games, you know? But for sure you start to like, I mean, it's always tempting in every game, and backgammon's such a deceiving one that way, to attribute like these bad results to some decision you made along the way. And so of course you start to look at it and like, oh, I earned it with that like mistake on the Baron like home, right? I should have left the distribution and then this wouldn't have happened. Of course it didn't have to go that way, right? Maybe you were going to leave a shot the other way too, but yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it takes some bad beats, doesn't it, to understand it? It's it's they're wonderful. The top players spend a lot of time on things that people like me just underestimate the value of the thought.
Yeah. You might not be aware that it's like any different or a decision at all, right? Like, what are they even thinking about to arrive at this conclusion?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
But it does make me laugh. I didn't realize that it was true that on an ace point board, invariably 90% of the time you will leave a shot.
Yeah, that's the statistic I heard.
Yeah. So the key is obviously to try and hope you're in a position where the timing of your opponent's gone and the home board is gone. And it's those sort of elements of the game that you're trying to build into your game, so you're not over haste. Never makes good. You're sort of bearing in. And I think most of those positions where I used to lose from winning positions, and I still do, is when through the early aggression you've got yourself in such a good position, but you just close out too quickly. You've actually kept your opponent's timing. You've kept your opponent's home board.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah,
the game doesn't always need to be as quick as we make it. There is an overexcitement, believe it or not. It's when you're winning, and one of my old adages is whenever I'm winning a match, is the slower I will play.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because backgammon is undoubtedly a better game when you're aggressive and fearless.
Yeah.
And invariably against your opponent, that will happen when they're losing, when they throw caution to the wind. So that is your most dangerous time, because obviously the equity is in their favor to cube early, to create the volatility. So all the trappings of backgammon are when you're winning.
Yeah, it's the hardest. I feel like people's worst PRs come from there. It's just harder to manage.
And I said, it's the fear of winning is often greater than the fear of losing in backgammon. It's harder sometimes to get over the line. In those games we all lose from 10-0 up in 11 points. Those are common. Those aren't uncommon. And it shows how hard it is when you're winning to close out when someone is just...
I feel like that fear is rational too, like you're saying, because that happens to everyone. And it just like, that hurts the worst. When you're like, if you just get shut out of a match and you never had a chance, you're like, that was annoying, but I never really, the dice ran over me. When you get to like 1 point away from winning and then you lose, you're like, what did I do? Right? Like,
and you just pray you didn't do anything. You just pray that was the dice gods.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But
okay, so you talked a little bit about this. I want to get back to the UK circuit. You talked about having like a club tour that you have a championship of and everything like that. How does that work? Yeah, I'm curious about that.
So the UKBGF have every month in a different city or large town, a major event.
Wow. Okay.
I say London is in March, the national championships, the UK Open, the Blackpool Open, the Newcastle Open, the Liverpool Open. It's great.
Okay.
That's open to all the members. There's always a Masters event and an intermediate event.
Cool.
And ultimately, the winners of all those events go into a Tour Winners Invitational, which we just had, which is a weekend away paid for by the subscriptions. So And and you get the ultimate champion. That this year was Radu Giortan in the Masters, who's very well known Romanian player who lives in the UK, who travelled far and wide. In fact, actually, I think was runner up in Cyprus. Actually, I think last year.
Great player. I met him before.
So Radu won that, and we have the lovely intermediate, which was won by the lovely Merin, which is great to see a woman win. And actually, the women's section is definitely growing faster in the UK now than it was. Awesome. I think as backgammon's become more credible, both in regulatory bodies of the UKBGF, giving it real governance and authenticity.
Yeah.
And the venues are improving. We're not at the back of a pub anymore, or in a seedy location downtown. Hopefully the women now don't feel as intimidated to play. Which is great.
How were you able to improve the locations like that? What did you have to do to get them into nicer places to play? That's very common in the US too, for them to be in whatever bar will have us for a year until they kick us out, and they're like, "You're not buying."
Yeah, I think it's beg, steal, and borrow. In essence, we promise things that we can't deliver.
Okay.
Let 30, 40, 50 of us come in, and we'll boost your coffers during the week when you might be quiet. I think the problem is it takes up a lot of space, backgammon. Mm-hmm. It's very noisy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And invariably, I don't know if you have it in the States, backgammon players, I'm going to be polite, are quite frugal.
Yes, yeah.
So the support of the venue in food and drink isn't as good as you would like it to be, not least when people like me aren't even charging for people to play in the event.
Yeah.
Because you just wanted to use people to come.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It is hard, but you hope that you can find venues that specifically during the week see a value in, on a quiet weekday night of, having 30, 40 people there. And you keep hoping that the dynamic of backgammon will actually appeal to those places. And one of my venues, the Melia White House Hotel in London, has quite an Arabic, Asian clientele, and they love the idea of having backgammon there where their guests could come down and play with us.
That's
cool. and actually they liked the idea.
Feels like a very international game that way. It's a cool appeal that it has,
Yeah, I mean, the greatest thing about backgammon, as we both know, is that most people can play it.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is a much, much deeper community than we have any idea. I only have to look at my wife and my kids. They can all play.
Yeah.
They wouldn't come to a tour event and they wouldn't be interested in joining the UKBGF, but they can all play. And you start exponentially looking at that across the board. And it's not like chess where, you're going to have to be truly elite to get to a decent level. The luck factor and the ability to grow into backgammon to a good level very quickly is very rare in any other game, especially a game that is a mind sport and has a skill set. So, and that was always the big appeal to me, that I knew within a short space of time I could sit down with elite players and at least hold my own to a point.
Yeah,
I was never going to be able to do that in chess. I was never going to be able to do that in bridge. I was never going to be able to do that in a sport.
Interesting.
So, as I look at Reese and Oliver, our two younger generation, who I told you through COVID have now become two of the top players in the country and playing to stunningly low PRs.
Yeah.
And they've done it through a bit like Ryan. Through a short period of time, just having the ability to understand maths, understand XG, understand the strategy. Left to themselves, they've literally had minimal guidance or lessons or tuition. And all of a sudden, that's it. Boom. They're playing to 2.5, 3 PRs regularly and competing, and it's just comes so easy to them.
Amazing stuff.
It is amazing. It is amazing. It's and that's the beauty of the game, because you couldn't do that in any other. I mean, just to understand your reference positions in chess is a lifetime experience.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's true of backgammon that you can get competitive in it and you can enjoy playing whatever level you're at and things like that. But it's nice that it has both sides. That like also you never run out of things to study and get better at. You know,
Oh
like,
God, no,
yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But so
I
that
like.
tour, yeah,
Yeah,
the
no, I love
tours. Go ahead, go ahead. I'm sorry.
the hard work. The hard work that you put in, is where the good luck finds you in backgammon. I've
Yeah,
always believed that. Yeah,
of
the people that
course.
work, the work the hardest. The old Gary Player adage, isn't it?
Yeah,
The harder I practice, the luckier I get. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's no, it's great. It is great, and it's great that there's now literature out there. That there's all these wonderful commentaries with the XG analysis, and
yeah,
as we both said, and we've seen both supported it. If Digigammon unlock the elixir of the immediate transcription, then that just opens a whole world to people improving their backgammon literally overnight.
yeah, yeah,
Take me, I've never recorded a single match of mine ever.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not least of all because I couldn't sit down for an hour and a half and transcribe it.
I'll make a video for you soon. I don't know if you'll take it up, but I can show you how at least. So.
Yeah, no, I think I know how. It's just I think my wife gets frustrated enough with the amount of time I put into the game. If I brought her home and started transcribing, she'd think
Yeah.
I was mad.
If you just do it for a year, then you can also run the match on like 4 times speed and get it done in like maybe half the match time at the most or something.
Yeah,
It gets better.
I know but that will be the final piece of the jigsaw, because then you could literally have your own
Yeah.
self-improvement kit at home.
Sure. That's like a vision
wonderful.
of mine too, actually. I don't know if that like resonates with anything you're doing in the UK scene, but like with all this study and like making it a mind sport and this like intrigue of getting better at this game this way and these PR measures, I think it'd be so cool. Also, just for content, I think it'd be so cool if we like someday it became the standard to be recording and analyzing all matches at a tournament. You know, and I don't know if this is like scalable on the, of course if new players show up they're not going to bring that, right? So it's not going to happen at the player level, I don't think, but it seems possible at like some like tournament running level to like have this equipment moving around to at least some set of tournaments and have that opportunity more often, you know?
Yeah, well, I think if Digigammon unlock it, then you could easily find, and I wanted to do it actually for the UK Open, is
Yeah,
the final 8 at least
yeah,
play under a properly recorded, transcribed
yeah, yeah,
table.
yeah,
But I liked the idea. I had this conversation with Bernard on how would you expand BMAB, and I said, rather than just in the UK, for example, to play BMAB, you can only play in either an event where you're recording all your matches and you send it off, or
yeah,
you go to Mark Adkins, who's the only person that puts on a BMAB weekend, which is up in slightly north for most of us down south,
yeah,
but he has all the equipment. But the reality is you need it to be almost more individually accessible, and I always thought you should go to a tournament where there are 8 or 10 tables where people can just pay £20 to play their match
yeah,
on a recorded, pay for the transcription,
yeah,
and come away with a purposeful education, because actually
yeah,
having a match transcribed where you played under pressure,
yeah,
not one of our games online, is a different world of understanding where your game honestly is.
yeah, yeah,
And as I said to you, from tournament directing as much as I do, and very, very few players I find play better under pressure,
yeah,
PR wise, which is quite interesting. And if I think that's where the consistency of the top players in the tournaments is so evident, and it will be quite revealing for a lot of the next layer of players, and I put myself in that umbrella, when we see, wow, under pressure, did I really drop that cube? Did I really not make that move where I needed to come out and break the anchor and not fear being hit? And instead became intransigent and my board collapsed. And it's all these things that you'll learn about yourself, because that's what the study does. The study isn't about the PR and finding the right move, because once you reach a reasonable level, you'll find it. Sometimes it's helpful, watching your videos or Dan Rivera's to just educate yourself to the next layer where people are properly analysing it.
Yeah.
But it's understanding where your flaws are under pressure, and they're always consistent.
Yeah.
I've highlighted mine. I know mine.
Yeah.
And I'll still do it because I still haven't educated myself enough to understand what not to do. So, you
have to stay up on like that study and really like keeping those weaknesses out. My consistent one, I just love to take cubes, and so if I'm not like up on my study and playing a lot, like this tendency creeps back in, and all of a sudden I'm like taking like 500, 600 passes every time, and I'm like, oh man, it's back. I gotta start passing again. How do I do this?
you just don't. I mean, the reality is, it's being aggressive on taking the cube is a risky world to be part of, especially if you're playing at a reasonable level, because invariably your premise always has to be, why has he cubed me? He's cubed me because he feels he's in a winning position. So always accept that you are now the underdog.
Right.
And actually, it took me a long time to be, as an optimistic person, of actually looking at when someone cubes me, of being a pessimistic person.
Yeah.
I don't believe you should ever receive a cube and be optimistic about it. You've got to look at it's only about your downsides.
Yeah.
It's about,
it's good advice that I just cannot internalize in my heart. I'm still going to take. I want to make people play it out. I want to figure this out.
Yeah, but that's fine. And I do that online a lot because it's a learning curve. That's how I've learned online. I don't care about my galaxy rating. I'd rather play it out and understand why I shouldn't have taken it, and then see it take out and go, great, I can now understand that the 2-5 anchor is useless and I shouldn't have taken it, when he was in that position. And it's about reference positions. The game is all about reference positions under pressure, because that's all you've got in your head.
Absolutely.
And it takes a lot to build that bank of knowledge. And more importantly, to be able to use it. And you can only compartmentalize it as simply as you can.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, be it Sander, be it Mochi, all of them, ultimately the game is based on reference positions when they're looking at that.
Yeah. So the London Open and the UK Open, are those both part of the circuit as well, or are they like separate big events?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I mean, they're obviously the London Open is, in inverted commas, my event. So that London's my hometown, and that's my baby. And I've got the most unbelievable venue this year, which is the Royal Automobile Club, which backs onto Buckingham Palace in Pall Mall.
Wow.
It's the first time we'll have backgammon in London in a room to be proud of. It's but the
so
RAC,
this isn't always the venue, huh? Like this is a new thing this year?
It's evolved. I've slowly tried to improve it year on year.
Yeah.
And this year, through the help of the RAC, who have a very big backgammon community, and dare I say, because I'm now a more visible face and more credible to them, they entrusted me, saying, you know what, actually, it will be of value to the RAC and their 5,000 members to have the flagship London backgammon event at the RAC. Is a win-win for both of us.
So cool. Okay.
So that's going to be, I mean, normally you have to wear a jacket.
Okay.
And there's no jeans, no trainers, no.
Okay.
So Sander wouldn't want to come.
I was going to say, you're going to have to tell me more about this dress code before I show
the dress code, they've relaxed it a little bit, very kindly, so it's not as...
I'm a shorts and t-shirt guy.
No, the RAC is going to be a seriously... Yeah, it's not serious. You just can't wear collarless tops, can't wear jeans, can't wear trainers.
Okay.
And it's a very smart club.
Beautiful.
So that will be that one. And then in August, when you come out, we hire or take over an entire hotel in a very pretty place called Leamington Spa, just up in Warwick.
Awesome.
Close to Shakespeare country. And literally the whole of our community come for a long weekend. And that should just be a blast. And this year, by being non-profit making in it, I'm really investing the profit into the event.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So it should be a lot of fun. Yeah, it really should. And it's our national title. Yeah, at the end of the day, that should be about wanting to be the UK Open champion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For me, yeah, the titles are the ones you remember for yourself. Whether you win some money is nice, but it comes and goes. And
Yeah.
if you're married like I am, it goes very quickly. But more invariably, I don't win it, so it's irrelevant. But no, and that one, I'm hoping in a nice sense by having you there, it will take the presentation of the event to another level. If
Yeah.
we have a failing in the UK, we're not very sophisticated. We don't have Bill and Tara. Yeah, we don't have a very slick, set up in terms of streaming and dealing with it. Ultimately, the tournament directors have to selflessly do it. I have to remind myself every 4 weeks how to deal with OBT or OBS or whatever it is, and invariably get it wrong half the time.
I'll be able to help with
talking. But no, it'll be nice. We'll talk about it in advance. But I want to make sure the setup there, because I can invest in the setup, is one that you say, look, if you could set this up like this, we can really put on a show. And that's the idea. The idea is to invest in that and to take us to another level. Last year was great. We had Mark on board as a sponsor. It gave us all, huge visibility through the streaming. Yes, the content. Sadly, the incident, blew everything out of proportion. But ironically, it blew everything out of proportion because of the profile of the event by putting it through the Galaxy streaming and having such visible. I mean, I think we've had now over 30,000 views of that match. I mean, it's.
I think Mark has a keen sense of this, that like no publicity is bad publicity. I think that's why he got it.
No. Just, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, for sure. I fully get it. And let's be honest, Backgammon needs Galaxy to succeed. We need Galaxy to become the party poker of the backgammon world, to generate huge profile in the social media world, online, sponsorship. The old story, Tiger Woods in golf. And I remember that someone said to someone, I can't remember, I think it was Mark O'Meara, isn't it disappointing that you won 3 majors, but you might have won 33 if Tiger Woods hadn't been around? He goes, if Tiger Woods hadn't been around, I'd be worth a lot less money.
No, I completely agree, man. I always am in like this funky position of like hoping they do too, and like wanting to be able to help, but like it's also like you said, like all the finances in the backgammon industry and stuff. Like I think Mark's also in a place where he feels like he just has to do it all on his own. So it's like good luck to him. I hope he can figure it out. Like we need you to, So
no, of course, it desperately needs it. So fingers crossed he will. And what certainly the Turkish community are doing in the backgammon world is off the charts.
Unbelievable.
The scale of their events is just phenomenal. And so
we got to wrap up soon here, but I did have one question about like, I mean, I love all the things you're talking about growing your events. I mean, the perspective on that's so cool. Like, I guess, do you have any attendance goals or like big things that you see yourself doing in the next couple of years? Like, what's your big stretch goals with your London and UK events?
So my targets are, I go back to the word legacy. My enthusiasm for myself is that the selfless energy and commitment I give selfishly leaves me a legacy that's something to be proud of. There are things like currently I hope that the UKBGF will become potentially a charitable organisation, so that ultimately we can infuse donors and sponsors to give to us tax-free. I have, set up a while back the UKBGF Junior and Youth Association that's growing. I created a youth committee of only our youth players. I felt the adults were doing a bad enough job with the world as it is, that they didn't need us to run their backgammon world. And then it stretches. I've got some really nice things going on. We've got mind rooms opening in the National Health Hospitals in London.
Wow. Okay.
So through COVID, I saw the games rooms where the children and the adults would go, and it was sad.
Yeah.
And I've got a donor who's a very big distributor of board games, aligned to the UKBGF. We're going to set up these mind rooms in all the hospitals, and it's all these things. Mine are grassroots baby steps that lay foundations. The bigger picture of the higher profile things of the UK Open, the London Open, the online league. As awful as it sounds, they're a matter of course for me.
Yeah.
I could make those within reason because I've got such good help around me. Bigger, bolder, better, arguably.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure bigger and bolder is better.
Yeah.
I think what's wonderful in the UK is the community. There is an inbred sort of community of about 200 hard standing stalwarts of the game that travel high and low, and they're the ones that have underpinned the game and should be rewarded, and that we provide. I believe it's online where we'll get the growth.
Mm-hmm.
I think the youth will gradually grow into the game more and more. We're all beginning to see it slowly but surely online.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it to a smaller extent in schools, where they're happy to now play backgammon, not look at it as a gambling game, which has always been the perception.
Yeah.
And at some point, if only we had an Art Benjamin in the UK, we could actually persuade the schools that maths and backgammon are aligned in a funky, cool way. Because I had him as our special guest last year, and he was just off the charts.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to live up to.
Yeah. I'll do my best, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate the opportunity
we'll have a lot of fun, and outside of this, you and I'll discuss how we can create a setup that maximizes what you and I can put on as a real show.
Of course. Yeah. I'm so looking forward to it.
No, I'm thrilled you're coming.
That's in
great.
The beginning, March 3rd? March?
No, so March is the RAC in London. That was the one we talked about where we may go remote for you. The UK is 100% where you're coming.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's the UK Open's done deal. That's the UKBGF. That's our flagship.
Yeah.
In a funny sense, if you came out in March, it might actually undermine August to make it not as but because I think what you and I said, let's see how if all things are great, go well at Gibraltar for you, we'll do the same
here,
which will be great, other than time zones are a pain for you, but you'll get to commentate with our best and brightest like Julian Fetterline and
sweet.
I know when Rory commentated recently, as much as he liked thinking he knew about commentating, once he sat down with Julian Fetterline, it was like, whoa, this is a great education. he really is our old master, bless him. He's our little jewel in the crown. It's there's a lot going on. There's too many things going on in truth in the backgammon world for me at the moment. It's just finding
well, I'm looking forward to working on it. I'm like, thank you for sharing all your ideas, especially all these like charitable things. Sound so inspiring, man. That's really cool.
And that's the idea. It's believe it or not, by being, and I think the USBGF did it, by being a charity, actually opens a lot more avenues to people giving.
Yeah.
And giving with a belief that actually the money will do something.
Yeah.
I think people are beginning to realise now that with the UKBGF, as with the USBGF, and I'm sure the German and Danish backgammon federations, and definitely the World Backgammon Federation, they can start seeing where money is going, that it actually is really going into the game. Whether it can seep its way to where we'd all love to be, which is the holy grail of junior and youth backgammon with real investment,
Yeah.
I'm not quite convinced yet. I think it will. I think that's more linked to online and online tutorial, online seminars, online tournaments
Yeah.
of short scale. It's not in the live arena.
Yeah.
A bit like
Yeah.
you were saying about beginners backgammon. You're not going to want the beginners to turn up at the LA Open or the US Open or the UK Open. Save that we'd love to set them a few tables aside, and would gladly pay for any of our professionals to spend some time with them and teach them. But they're not going to come to that event. It's not going to. Not least all the costs to get there.
Fair.
So no, there's a pretty clear vision of where we're going. There's a clear vision in my mind of what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I've got another 2 years to try and get this done, and then maybe I'll get a chance to start playing the game again.
Well, good luck to you. Happy studies and everything like that.
Thank
and
you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. And
No,
we'll be back
listen,
on
thanks for giving
Fridays.
us a forum.
Yeah.
All these forums, yours, Dan's, all of them are just, they're all good for
so
the
many
game.
popping up. Yeah, it's so exciting to be like, it's a new age of backgammon, right?
Yeah, well, I did the bravest thing. I got down to put me through the mill of doing the rules of the game after what happened in the UK. Because I thought, as one of the senior statesmen in UK backgammon, I would be the one to try and not ensure I didn't get anything wrong.
Sure. Well, it's been a pleasure, Andrew. Yeah. Thank you so much. Check out the tournament at the beginning of March. Yeah.
Exactly, and I'm just waiting for your books to arrive. I understand at the end of this month.
I think they might be there. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
we'll see you soon. Bye.
Take care.